Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Our lesson for today would be about price elasticity of demand. And our objectives for today are to define price elasticity of demand. We will learn how to calculate it using the formula. And finally, we will interpret the PED figures, recognizing the difference between the different types of elasticity: the perfectly elastic demand, unit elasticity, inelastic demand, and finally perfectly inelastic demand. Now we need to define what PED is, or price elasticity of demand. It is to measure the change of how people react to a change in price. So, for example, if a small change in price produces a bigger change in demand, so the percentage change in quantity is greater than that of price, I would say that my demand is elastic. So people were affected by that change in price. If a large change in price, so if the percentage change in price is greater than that of demand, I would say that demand is inelastic. It means that people were not affected by this change in price. So when my objective right now is to calculate the PED, and the formula would be for PED, so PED, it is percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. I want to break down this formula. The quantity by itself, it would be Q2, which is final, minus initial over initial, and since it is a percent, I need to multiply it by 100. All of it I have to divide it by percentage change in price, which is P2 minus P1 over P1 times 100. Now, if you want, you can cancel the 100 and 100. You would always get a negative answer. Why? Because this negative, it will prove to us that the demand curve is a negative sloping curve, which proves the relationship, the indirect relationship between price and quantity demanded. These have an indirect or an inverse relationship. This is why I get a negative answer, but I will always ignore it. So please take your time and write down this formula. And as we said, this one I broke it, and this one I broke it. So Q2 minus Q1 over Q1 times 100. All of it we divided by P2 minus P1 over P1 times 100. So this is the definition of PED, the response of consumers to a change in price. So the critical question is by how much quantity will change due to a change in price. This is what I need to figure out. And remember, when I am calculating PED, it is an answer with no unit. So it is just a value that I compare to number 1. So right now, this is a small exercise that I would like to apply the formula that we just explained. We have peak travel per day. So mainly you can see people using the train or the metro during peak hours. So I want to know, to me as a producer, would it be better for me to increase or to decrease the price? They gave me 2 different scenarios. So at first, this was my old, and this became my new. So here I have at an old price, which is P1, the ticket was for $4 and I only had 100 passengers. This would be my Q1. They have to find total revenue. Now, definitely to me as a producer, the higher the total revenue, the better it would be for me. So the total revenue, I would always calculate it by doing price times quantity. And in that case, it would be 4 times 100, and my total revenue was $400. Now, if they increase the price from $4 to $5, So this means this is my new price, and the number of passengers decreased from 100 to 95. This would be my new quantity. What is the new total revenue? My new total revenue would be price times quantity, which is 5 times 95, and it gave me $475. Now, before I start applying the formula, what do you think is better for me as a producer? To be receiving $400 or $475? Definitely $475. So I noticed that even when they increased the price, it was better for me as a producer, even though demand decreased. But obviously, the demand decreased by less than the percentage change in price. So I can tell that the percentage change in price was greater than the percentage change in quantity. Let me calculate this. So what I would be doing is applying the formula PED, which is percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. My percentage change in quantity would be Q2, which is 95 minus 100 divided by 100 times 100 to change it into a percent. And the percentage change in price would be 5 minus 4 over 4 times 100. Now, the percentage change in quantity by itself would be, I would write it in red, it would be 5%. It decreased by 5%, negative 5%. And the percentage change in price by itself would be 25%. So it's true. The percentage change in price, when they increased the price by 25%, only 5% stopped using the train. So it was better for me to increase the price. Here I would get an answer which is negative 0.2. Remember, this negative, I ignore it. So I would say 0.2 is less than 1, therefore my demand is said to be inelastic. So when you get inelastic demand, it means that people are not really affected by that change in price. So it would be better for you to increase the price as a producer. Now, let us interpret the PED figures. So we will analyze the graphs, how my demand curve would look like if the demand was inelastic or elastic, or perfectly inelastic. So all the 5 different types of elasticity. Okay? Now, since we were talking about the formula of the PED and the calculation, I would just like you to keep in mind that if you get an answer which is greater than 1, your demand is always said to be elastic. Less than 1, you say that your demand is inelastic. Now, these are considered special curves or extreme cases. Here you will get an answer which is either 0, it means that your demand is perfectly inelastic, or you would get infinity. So if you try and apply these numbers on your calculator, you would get a math error, then your demand is said to be perfectly elastic, or you will get unitary elastic, where you will always get an answer exactly equal to 1. Now, later on, we will explain these by applying the formula, and you will see them also graphically, how these curves would look like. Let us start with elastic demand. Always you will put the price on the y-axis, quantity demanded on the x-axis, and that would be my demand curve. So my initial price is P1, and that was Q1. All right, if producer decreases the price from 10 to 7, so from 10 to 7, this would be my P2, and this would be my Q2. Look what happens. I want to measure my PED. So the percentage change in price by itself, it would be 7 minus 10 over 10 times 100. And the percentage change in quantity, how did I get the 300%? It is 20 minus 5 over 5 times 100. So when I want to find my PED, remember it's the change in demand over the change in price. So it would be 300 divided by 30%. This is negative. If you want, again, I tell you, percent and percent, you cancel. 0, 0, cancel. 30 divided by 3, my answer is negative 10. I ignore the negative. My answer is 10. It's greater than 1. So I say my PED is elastic. This is how I calculated it. Now I want to explain it graphically. So graphically, as you can see, this change here is much less than the change that I have on the quantity. So the quantity, the percentage change in quantity is much greater than that of price. And as explained before, I said when I get a higher change in quantity, it means that my demand would be elastic. Inelastic demand, again, same thing. It is steeper, my demand curve, if I'm talking about an inelastic demand. My original price was 10 and my original quantity was 5. If prices decrease from 10 to 5, so this is my P2, my quantity demanded also will increase. What will happen to quantity demanded at that point? It will be 6. This is my new quantity demanded. Let's substitute these numbers in the formula, okay, and we will get 0.4. 0.4 is a figure less than 1, so I say that my demand is inelastic. So look at the change. When prices changed by 50%, my quantity demanded only changed by 20%. So this is the 50% change, and this is my 10% change. My percentage change in price is greater than that of quantity. I would say that demand is inelastic. Now I would like you to try and solve this little exercise, but before you solve it, I would like you to tell me whether looking at this, when prices decreased by $10 per tin, the market value increased by 500. Are you able to tell me whether the demand is elastic or inelastic before finding the final answer? You need to measure the percentage change in quantity and that of price. Whatever is greater, it will help you give you the final answer. So let us solve it together. When I am calculating PED, the percentage change in quantity would be 1,500 minus 1,000 divided by 1,000 times 100. All of it I divided by the percentage change in price, which is 30 minus 40 over 40 times 100. So my answer here would be, so my answer here would be 50%, and here it would be negative 25%. So I say that my percentage change in quantity is greater than that of price. I know because of that my demand would be elastic. So if I divide 50 by negative 25, I would, so 50% divided by negative 25, I would get negative 2. I ignore the minus. 2 is greater than 1. So yes, my demand is elastic. So when they say comment on its value, this is what I need to do. And I want you to try and graph. Now I will be explaining something called special curves. So as we said before, we have 5 types of elasticity. The first one was PED is elastic, and the answer would be greater than 1. The second one is PED is inelastic, and my answer would be less than 1. The third one and the fourth and the fifth are the special curves or extreme cases. So it is when my PED is equal to 1, or it is equal to 0, or infinity. Now, since we're talking about special curves or extreme cases, the first one that we will be explaining is the perfectly inelastic demand. So if we have a look here, no matter what the price, my quantity demanded remains constant. It doesn't change. So if I want to calculate my PED, which is the percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price, there's no change in quantity. So it would be 0 divided by the change in price. So in math, 0 divided by any number, your PED would be 0. Your answer is 0. So when you get an answer which is 0, it means that you would say you have a perfectly inelastic demand. Let us explain this. So mainly we will be talking about needs. Since this is a perfectly inelastic demand, it means we are talking about extreme needs in life. So it would be a matter of life or death. So it is a medicine such as, for instance, chemotherapy. God forbid I am a cancer patient and I need 10 sessions of chemotherapy. No matter what the price, I will be demanding these 10 sessions. Okay, so don't say Panadol. Panadol would be inelastic. I will get an answer which is less than 1. But here, I will buy it at any price. So people are not affected at all by the change in price. So demand does not change with change in price. Now here I have unit elastic demand or unitary elasticity. In this case, it means when I am to calculate PED, my answer would always be equal to 1. It means if prices increase by 50%, the quantity demanded will also decrease by 50%, the change. So when I am to calculate the PED, percentage change in quantity over that of price, which is 50% divided by 50%, I will get an answer which is equal to 1. Now, at that point, I know you might be a bit confused because I'm telling you if prices increase by 50%, quantity demanded will also increase by 50%, so it's the same amount. Now, when my demand curve looks like this, I call that in math a rectangular hyperbola. Rectangular. What does that mean? Any area under this curve, any rectangular area under this curve would be equal to the other rectangular area. Let us calculate here, for example, my total revenue at the old price and at the new price. So, if I am to calculate total revenue at point A, 20 times 40, it would give me a total revenue of $800. If I am also to calculate total revenue at point B, it would be 8 times 100, which is also equal to $800. So here the revenue or the spending is not changing. So the percentage change in price is always equal to that of quantity. This is unitary elasticity. You might also find it looking like this. It doesn't matter. Price, quantity. This is my demand curve. So for instance, if prices are changing by 10%, quantity demanded will also change by 10%. As long as I am getting an answer equal to 1, I would say that my demand is unitary elastic. Here, I am explaining perfectly elastic demand. Here, the price is the one that is not changing and the quantity is the one changing. So if I am to apply the formula and I am calculating the PED, I would do percentage change in quantity over that of price. The quantity is the one that is changing, so I will get a number. But the price, there is no change in it. So it will be divided by 0. In math, any number divided by 0, you would get a math error. So I would say that my PED would be infinite. What does that mean? It occurs when a change in price causes a complete change in the quantity demanded. So for example, here I am having a price of 12, right? If the producer will increase their price and they will make it price of 15, let's say, my whole demand curve will change. So if one of the many producers raises his price, he will lose all of his sales with buyers. So they will switch to competitors. Okay, but all you need to know in perfectly elastic demand is that you will get an infinite answer and the price is the one that is always constant. So change in demand is always changing, but the price is the one that is constant. Here, this is like a summary of everything that we covered until now. So the range of elasticity of demand, when you get an answer equal to 1, you would say this is unit elastic. Any answer less than 1 from 0 and less than 1, it would be inelastic. An answer 1 and greater, I will call it elastic. An answer that is infinite, I would say it's perfectly elastic. And an answer which is 0 exactly, I would say it is perfectly inelastic. Now, this is like a summary. So when I am to interpret what elasticity is from the figures that I get, greater than 1, it is elastic. So in other words, it means that consumer response is large relative to the price change. So the percentage change in quantity is greater than the change in price. When my answer is less than 1, I would say that my demand is inelastic. What does that mean? That consumer response is small relative to the change in price. When I get an answer equal to 1, I would call it unitary elastic, which means a percentage change in quantity demanded is exactly equal to a percentage change in price. And when I get a horizontal demand curve looking like that, I would say that my demand is perfectly elastic. So any price increase would cause demand to fall to 0. And when I get a vertical demand curve, so this is my demand curve, price, quantity, I would say that my demand is perfectly inelastic and my PED would be equal to 0 in that case, and quantity demanded will not change at all, regardless of the price change. That's it for today. In our next lesson, we will be talking about factors of price elasticity of demand. Have a lovely evening.